Brian Haller is recording. Just waiting for the... Here we go. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Pod Stallions. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is Jason to the left?
Slightly left of center.
Slightly left of center.
Hello, everyone.
And we are boiling some Tana leaves and thought we would talk about one of my favorite monsters, the Mummy, and various Mummy movies for this Halloween season. Jason, what is your first recollection of the Mummy?
Well, I think like everyone, I probably saw him first in Lost in Space. And, he was a cute kid. Oh, wait.
Oh, no, that's Bill Mumy. Oh, no. You've been prepping all wrong.
Done completely the wrong research. Maybe you should go first.
Okay. I actually, I forgot the joke I was going to make. I was going to make a thing about mommy movies and how they're completely different, but
we're such the comedy team. We're like,
my goodness. Yeah, we are Wheeler and Woolsey. I've been struggling all day, which I've had a big day, trying to figure out what my first exposure to the Mummy was, and I think it was pop culture. I don't think I saw a Mummy movie till a few years later. I think Scooby-Doo, the Super Friends, and particularly the Monster Squad television show in '76. Those are probably my first, because they had a mummy as a villain in one episode. I think those were kind of the first exposures, because the Mummy was so in our nomenclature, it's so in our pop culture that a lot of things parody it. And I want to think there was a Mummy on Gilligan's Island, but I could be wrong.
I've been thinking about this too, and first of all, I agree with you. I think that I'm positive that I knew what a mummy was because of a cartoon or pop something. I keep thinking of the Groovy Ghoulies.
Oh yeah,
there was a mummy on the Groovy Ghoulies, but there was I keep thinking about this. It's either a cartoon or it's a Mad Magazine thing, but I think it's a moving image of some kind. That and maybe it's Mad Monster Party, something where the mummy at some point gets naked, or it's not, you don't see that it's naked, but it's all of a sudden it's lost its wrapping and it's embarrassed or something. And there's some image that's sticking out in my head about this weird so the mummy's is it just a skeleton, or what is it like? And it was in some kind of cartoon or something. I forget what, but it had to be one of those pop culture things that
Yeah, well, hopefully one of our listeners will be able to. It's not Mad Monster Party, eh?
Is it Mad Monster Party? Maybe, but that wouldn't have been the first thing that I'd seen. But I think maybe Groovy Ghoulies. Isn't there a mummy in Groovy Ghoulies? Is there a mummy in Groovy Ghoulies?
I'm just trying to think. There's a Dracula, there's a Frankenstein, there's a Wolfman. Yeah, I think there is a mummy in Groovy Ghoulies. That was the one show I didn't see as a kid. But yeah, I think there is.
Okay, maybe that, and then probably some cartoon or something, but I can't think of when I first saw the Karloff mummy, but I'm sure that I saw that would have been the first iteration of them, in a motion picture that I would have seen would have been the Karloff mummy.
Yeah, I had the Crestwood book series in my library, and I've pontificated on how impactful that series was on me as a kid, and I think a lot of Gen X kids can understand that. They had the Mummy book there, and so I think I got a lot of my learning from that. I do remember seeing the first Karloff mummy, which I think is considered like the quintessential mummy film, the Imhotep film. But I'm going to say something controversial. It's not my favorite.
You know what's funny is I was going to say something similarly controversial. I rate the Jack Pierce makeup on the mummy as maybe the best thing that he ever did.
Oh, I would agree with you. Even the Imhotep makeup is amazing.
Yeah, extraordinary.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the film itself.
I agree with you. It's not one of my favorites. Yeah.
It's a remake of Dracula. And believe it or not, there's actually silent mummy films that you can't find anymore. But I have to say, if Boris Karloff was Imhotep, and then two different actors like Tom Tyler and then Lon Chaney Jr. were Karras. I'm totally more Team Karras than I am Imhotep, because Imhotep is very much this immortal love story thing, and he's a mummy for about 3 seconds in the film, and then Karras. The Karras movies, I know they're B pictures, they were definitely part of a double feature. The Karras films are just so much fun. And I remember I bought the box set like about 20 years ago, and I watched it on a plane. I remember I was flying back from Vancouver, and some of those movies are pretty short. And I couldn't get over how much I was enjoying rewatching these as an adult. They're pot boilers. They're and I think somebody has actually gone on record as saying that, like, if you look at the timeline of those films, it would take place like in 2020, the last one, because they just keep going 30 years later or 30 years later, without actually going 30 years later. And I think by the last one too, Chaney is just basically wearing a rubber mask for a lot of the shots, because him and Jack Pierce had a dislike. But like, you watch that, I think it's The Mummy's Hand, and it's Tom Tyler.
Is it Mummy's Hand and then Mummy's Tomb is the other one? That's two that I'm thinking of?
Yes, you're absolutely right. The Mummy's Hand has got Tom Tyler, and they do this cartoony thing of blacking out his eyes, which is really effective, and Tyler is, of course, famous for playing Captain Marvel in those wonderful serials at the time. I just can't get over, and those films are, even though The Mummy in the Brendan Fraser version is considered Imhotep, those are Karras films. You know what I mean? Like, they took the cast of the Karras films and the more kind of Indiana Jonesy type story, and they just juxtaposed Imhotep on top of that. But and I think we'll get into the Stephen Sommers Mummy trilogy, because I have some interesting takes on that one as well. But yeah, I think Universal did 5 Mummy movies. And then, of course, they had him killed off by the one thing that could kill all Universal monsters, Abbott and Costello.
I was going to say, no, Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, which I'm not actually, that's not my favorite Abbott and Costello monster movie. I love a couple of them, but the Mummy one's kind of lame.
Is that the third one? Isn't that the third one?
I don't know.
Maybe okay, because I know they sort of run out of steam. Here's a wild card, though.
Actually, it's 55. I think that's real late. In the thing. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say here's a wild card too. Thinking of the concept of a mummy, or like the image, the visual. If I do the timeline, when I'm thinking of cartoons, jokes in whether it's Bugs Bunny or whatever about mummies or whatever pop culture stuff was around, or I don't even remember when the monster cereals were happening. I remember Fruit Brute. I'm not sure if we had Yummy Mummy where I was, but I would say the next thing would have been Doctor Who. It would have been Pyramids of Mars.
Damn! Oh my God! Wow. Yeah.
That would have been around 1978 or 70, maybe early 79.
It would have been about 77 for me, I think. Yeah.
Okay. You got them. You got those before we did here.
Yeah.
And it just was like,
I love Pyramids of Mars.
Oh my God, it's one of my favorites. We made Sutek. It's one of my favorite figures that we made. But
that was the only suggestion you had from me as a consultant.
No, that's not
Sutek.
You suggested more than that. You suggested Bonnie Langford over and over again.
Oh yeah, well, just Bonnie Langford though.
Just Bonnie Langford.
Yeah, I didn't actually want her to be.
You wanted her as Peter Pan, I think is what.
Yeah, I actually wanted her as Peter Pan. And yeah, you're right. I did. I did suggest the Bassett All Sorts Man and the Tet Traps.
And I think the was it the Merca?
The Merca.
You wanted a 2-man Mego Merca. You wanted
and I wanted it to have wet paint on it. Yeah.
Comes with its own little can of wet paint.
Wow, we have gone. There are people going, what are they talking about?
Sorry. Yeah, but there's one or two guys out there, probably Chris Cummins maybe, that are going, oh, keep going. You guys are on a roll. Go deeper with the Doctor Who shit. Even if there's 100 people, they're going, what? There's like one or two guys going, fuck yeah, keep going. Yeah.
The Pyramids of Mars is amazing. And in fact, I don't like 6-inch action figures very much, but I have a couple of the character options. Is it character options? Is that their name?
Yes. Yeah. Well, they're called something different, I think, in the States or something, but it's character options in the UK. Yeah.
Yeah. I have like all the stuff that no one else has ever made. Like, I have one of the 10th Planet Cybermen who are technically kind of mummies themselves. Mm-hmm. And actually, they terrify my wife. I think that's really cool. Ooh. And I have one of the Sutek mummy robots because they're just such an iconic design. And
did you get
an ice worm?
Did you get the set with Scorby? Is it Marcus Scorby? The he's dead, but he's the guy that's the villain in Pyramids of Mars. And
no, I don't have that one.
I think I have that somewhere, but like there's a Sutek, and then they made the sort of cardboard play set of the pyramids or something. That pyramid set.
For the nucleus of the swarm.
I think it comes with something. Yeah. No, but I know what you mean. Like that's one of my favorite stories, hands down, one of my favorite stories. But that would have been somewhere where that I would have said, oh, that's a mummy. Like, oh yeah. There's the
and the other thing I just would have brought up was Secret of the Mummy's Tomb, the original G.I. Joe record I had as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because wasn't that like a figure set, like a 12-inch figure set with?
It was, and I've got it actually like right behind me. But it definitely was it was a book and record set as well. An excellent.
Don't you feel like there was kind of a resurgence like in the mid 70s though, because not only did you have all the monster stuff getting its like third wave, the classic stuff, but you had the Tutankhamun thing that was
right. Yeah, my folks went to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and suddenly everybody was sort of mummy crazy.
Yeah, and that didn't help me at all. Because I was always, fascinated by mummies, and I think it's really funny to watch a lot of these movies now, and they're like blowing up the pyramid to open it, which is not how you would ever do that sort of thing, I always find that kind of stuff funny now, and you watch it and you're like, these people don't even know the basics of archaeology. Like I have a son who's a history major, and it's kind of funny to watch that stuff with him because he's obviously aware of the protocols.
Well, I love that it's been able to get more graphic as mummy stories have been told over the years of what they do to mummify somebody. Like that's always kind of been there. Yeah, but it's like really when you you put it in color and add the sound of it, like it really it's just chilling to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what I thought I would do is just kind of go through. We're not going to cover every Mummy movie ever done.
Yes, we are.
Well,
no, sorry. Go ahead.
Scorpion King 4. What we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of go through a list I pulled up and do some anecdotal stuff not anecdotal, of stuff I recognize.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll try to keep it to a timeline, but you and I both kind of like to stray at shiny things.
How dare you?
So,
how dare you?
So the Mummy kind of I think the 50s had a kind of a quiet period where the Mummy really wasn't that big a deal. And the one thing that was going on in Mexico, and I don't know if you've ever watched any of these, Jason, is the Aztec mummy movies.
I'm gonna say off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Being a junk film dealer in the early 90s, I got into these pretty good. I seem to recall the mummy's name is Popoca, which made a friend of mine laugh all the time. But it's basically, a Mexican Karis.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in 3 films, as I recall. The Aztec Mummy, Curse of the Aztec Mummy, and the one that most people know, Robot versus the Aztec Mummy, which was done on Mystery Science Theater.
Mm.
None of these films are terribly good. But they did get some sort of release to American television, I think theater, and I kind of think the characters are kind of cool looking, for the time. But I don't have a huge collection of this stuff. And if you said, well, do you want to pop on an Aztec Mummy movie, I'd be like, no, thank you. But yeah, I do recognize that I did spend some time watching those films back in the day.
Those are from the late.
Yeah, from the mid to late 50s. Yeah.
Okay. So well, Hammer got in there.
Well, that's where I was going with that. Is Hammer really brought the Mummy back in 59?
59. Okay.
Yeah, gotcha. And I honestly think of that one as possibly my favorite Mummy movie of all time. And
such a cool look.
It's such a cool look. It's a remake. I think it's the Imhotep story, but of course they brought it back to Blighty. Or is he Karis? I can't remember if Lee is Karis or if he's Imhotep, and now I'm gonna have to look that. Oh, he's Karis. Okay, so it's a Karis movie.
Imhotep, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a Karis. And so again, this is exciting to me because Mego is actually making a Karis figure. They did it through their Topps deal, and that was kind of exciting because I think this is one of the better films. And my favorite thing about this movie is they've recognized a serious conceit about mummies. There used to be a comedian around here called Ed the Sock. Actually, he's still around. And he had this whole thing of, oh, no, it's a mummy. Let's all quickly walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's right. So they make Peter Cushing's character injured in the film.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of more terrifying that he can't run away.
Yeah,
from the mummy.
The mummy thing is like, I mean, that's the go-to joke, of course. It's just like, like that's kind of what the zombie joke used to be before a certain point. But
zombies are a mob, and that's what's terrifying.
Right. But the mummy thing, I always feel like it's sexier in concept and in than actual threat, kind of like it.
I feel you. Yeah.
I love the there's a Hammer one called it's with a woman, and there's a ring involved, and it's like blood of the mummy's tomb, or blood.
Oh my God! I just bought that on Blu-ray. Yeah, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. Andrew Keir, Valerie Leone. Yeah,
Valerie Leone.
I haven't watched it yet.
It is weird.
Yeah.
It's opening, like the opening sort of as the story starts to kind of unfold. Like you're just like, oh, that's interesting. Like I love the historical aspect of the story.
Yeah, they always open well, don't they?
Yeah. That's always my favorite part of a mummy story is like, because you really, I mean, that's what really would be. It's like, I don't know, like we used to do a thing called World War Wednesday. Me and my two buddies, Paul and Rob. And every Wednesday we'd rent a World War II movie, get some takeaway, and sit and do Mystery Science Theater at one of our places and stuff. But but we'd always say, I wish someone would make a really incredible World War II movie, like in the spirit of adventure, with modern technology. And no one's really done it yet. Like no one's been able to. So I'd love like a mummy story in ancient Egypt where we can just be in ancient Egypt with that scale, for the whole movie. I don't think we've ever gotten that, have we? It's always been, you start with the opening and you give the history, and then you're right into present day or the 30s or whatever it is, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a lot of low budget sci-fi. For the first 15 minutes, you get this dazzling world, and then they immediately get their asses to Earth. And in modern day, and you're like, oh, good. Like I think of like Masters of the Universe or Beastmaster 2. You're so interested in their world, and they're like immediately getting to yours.
Right. So that's always the bit that I like the most about the mummy stories is like the telling of the tale.
Although I enjoy the Hammer mummy because it is a period piece.
Yeah.
So like at least you're not in modern day, and I think some of and this is where I'm fuzzy because I adore this film. It is probably, if it's not my favorite, it's my second favorite mummy film of all time. I can't name the other Hammer mummy movies because they get really bad.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of like even like the thing about Hammer which is you're talking about the Mego stuff. I mean, I can't believe get figures of Hammer characters like as they look in the movies I love so much.
They're making a Herbert Lom Phantom of the Opera, which is like the worst Phantom of the Opera. It's a terrible movie, but
it's not terrible. I mean, there's some weird stuff in it, but he's got an interesting look. Like he's got an interesting look.
It's just the film is unsatisfying for me.
Well, okay. I was going to say another example is Plague of the Zombies. Like that literally has a dream sequence. It has the image in your head of what these zombies look like. The rest of it, I think, is a slog. But it's like some of the Hammer stuff for me is like the image is what sort of counts. Like the image is greater than even Lee as Dracula. Like he made a lot of Dracula films. I mean, there's a couple where there's one there he doesn't say a word. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't speak a line of dialogue, and he's in it for like 10 minutes. So some of the Hammer stuff I can always kind of forgive because it's like, yeah, but you gave us that zombie, that look of that zombie.
Yeah, I actually have never sat through all of Plague of the Zombies.
There you go.
And, but I do love the look of that, and of course my buddy sculpted that figure, so I was like, I'm buying this.
I will get every Hammer thing
they
make because
I was kind of like the Gorgon, like I've never seen the Gorgon, but
they're doing the Gorgon too?
Yeah, they did the Gorgon for Tops. They did that, and they did the Karis. They did but I think they're gonna do another. I bet you anything they'll do another run at that Christopher Lee Karis because the one they had was really muddy.
Okay.
And I kind of had this feeling that they're gonna, down the line, bring that character back in a different form, because it was just so mucky. So let's go down. Oh no, I've closed my window.
Okay.
Oh my God, I'm completely lost. No, I don't need it.
Hey,
I was gonna talk about a couple of weird things that make me laugh in mummy films, and we're gonna go all over the place. But yeah, like I said, Hammer continued with mummy movies. They did Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. I honestly don't. I cannot. It's sort of like in a modern day version is. I know I've seen them, but my wife and I will be watching TV, and she'll flick the channel. She'll go, "Oh, Resident Evil movie's on," and the next question will be, "Which one is this?" And then she'll go, "I don't think I've seen this." And my answer is, A, I don't know which one this is, and B, yes, we have seen this, but they're so obsequious that we just can't put them together anymore. And I feel like that with a lot of the Hammer Mummy movies is where I just kind of, it's hard to care. There's no anchor in it.
I feel like that with the Bourne films.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, the Bourne films. Yeah. I go, yeah. Tell me the plots of the three of them. Tell me which one is which.
Yeah.
It's just like one big movie.
Yeah.
It's big. He's just going around kicking ass and finding out who he is for 6 hours. You can't tell one from the other.
They're really interchangeable. And there's a couple of 60s mummy movies that aren't.
So what happened? What were the 60s ones?
There's one that I love called Orgy of the Dead, which is a nudie, I believe written by Ed Wood.
Oh,
and there's a mummy in it. What's his name? Criswell's in it. And one of my favorite, 60s models was in it, which is, I think her name is Pat Barrington. And she was also in Russ Meyer's, what was that called? Russ Meyer did a Mondo Topless.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Are you telling me that the first thing that pops in your head, or the only thing for 60s mummy movies, is the Ed Wood Orgy of the Dead, or Orgy of the Mummies, or whatever it's called?
Orgy of the Dead. There's just a mummy in it. That's one.
Were there mainstream 60s mummy movies?
Well, not as many as you'd think that I can think of, and I gotta admit, I haven't been, studying all day.
Well,
Mad Monster Party.
Mad Monster
would
Party.
also be, he not only was in the film, but he got that awesome earwormy theme song. There is a really weird. Have you ever heard of a filmmaker named Jerry Warren?
Go further with it.
Jerry Warren made a lot of trash, and I like his trash, but I think he would take Mexican movies and splice them together and make films. He's made such terrible films as Wild Wild World of the Batwoman, Frankenstein Island, which I highly recommend, Chef's Kiss. It is just insane. And he made this film called Face of the Screaming Werewolf, where he took, I think, Lon Chaney slummed and went to Mexico, where he made one film where he played a werewolf, and he made one film where he played a mummy. And Jerry Warren somehow, sewed those elements together and called it Face of the Screaming Werewolf, where it's about a mummy who wakes up and he just turns out to be a werewolf. And Mega actually made an action figure based on this, by the way. It was actually sold at Target, which blew my mind. I will admit that figure, the idea behind that figure just was like, oh my God, are we really getting a Jerry Warren, a legitimate licensed action figure based on a Jerry Warren film? so there was a lot of Schadenfreude in that. They're garbage. That's a garbage film. I'm just trying to think if anything else in the 60s was.
But wouldn't you say the 60s is really where suddenly we've got our principled, monster. Like we've got Frankenstein's monster, we've got Dracula, we got the Wolfman, we got the wouldn't you say Mummy is 4 and then Creature from the Black Lagoon is bringing up 5 kind of? Mummy is more ubiquitous in.
Oh yeah, there's many mummy stories being told in the 60s, mostly through Hammer at that time. You've got the Mummy Shroud.
I'm saying like as a thing, as a monster, doesn't he sort of really get this shot in the arm in the 60s where suddenly it?
Well, they all did because of the shock theater program. Right.
Okay.
And they got merchandise, and for some, like, there were legal wrangles around making Dracula merchandise, but for some reason there wasn't a lot about the Mummy. And so especially when you figure out that like Universal in that shock theater package had 5 Mummy movies. Mm-hmm. So that character became, it got the Aurora model kit. It got the Marx figure. It got, you look at 60s monster merchandise, the Mummy got a ton. So yeah, it's definitely in the, the top 4 monsters, I would say. Top 5, because you got the Creech in there. Yeah. If you're talking about Universal, and he's definitely A-lister, if that's what you mean in terms of monsters. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's got to be. It's like that's when that sort of unified team of like 5, like we're just sort of in everything.
Yeah, and if you look at the 70s monster action figure boom, you had at one point 4 different action figure companies making 8-inch monsters. So you had Azrak Hamway that was actually making licensed Universal product, and then you had Mego, who was knocking off the to compete with them, and the Mummy was in that line. And then you look at Lincoln International, who was knocking off both of them, and the Mummy was in that line. So like the Mummy, the Creature wasn't in all those lines. So the Mummy was like that top 4 of recognizable characters with us children. And he was always included. Absolutely. He's definitely a like I said, an A-lister. You got Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy. And that's because also they are public domain, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't copyright a mummy. You can't copyright a vampire. You can copyright a Creature from the Black Lagoon because you damn well made it. Right. And that's, the interesting part. And of course, Hunchback and Phantom of the Opera. I think Hunchback and Phantom of the Opera are always like kind of B-list. I like them. I love them. But they're not quite on that same tier as the other characters, like Invisible Man or anything like that. Like, they're neat, but like, is the Hunchback really a monster? I think he's a good guy.
Yeah, I think it's very demeaning to call him a monster. He's got an affliction, and
yeah.
Not a bad guy. No, but you're right. I don't even think of like, it's funny that the Chaney Phantom of the Opera too. Like that's the one. Isn't that weird though? Isn't that the one that you think that the least people the fewest people would have seen? Like, they would have known the image, but how many people really saw that original Chaney Phantom? Do you know what I'm saying? Like more people would have seen, because it was, it's
the Charles Laughton would have been more popular,
right?
Even though it's not as good,
right? It would have been more people would have seen it, but somehow that freaking Chaney image. I think it's like
it's amazing though.
More people know the image,
and
dig it, than the actual that have probably seen the film or know the film. I would say. Do you know what I mean?
It's like, well, look at London After Midnight.
Yes, exactly.
No, none of us have ever seen that.
Right.
And it gives my wife like it's another image that my wife's like, that thing is terrifying.
Oh God.
Yeah. And by the way, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb brings up an interesting point. There's a Bram Stoker novel called The Jewel of the Seven Stars.
Oh yeah.
Which that Blood from the Mummy's Tomb is based on.
It's based on, yeah.
And it has been adapted many times. I believe, it was a film in 1980 that starred Charlton Heston called The Awakening.
Yes, I remember the ad on the
back. Which I've never seen.
At the ad on the back of, I think it was either on the back of Fangoria or Starlog. They had a full ad, and it looked like a lady mummy.
Yeah.
Thing, but I don't know if I've seen it.
And Bram Stoker, he wrote a couple mummy stories, I think. But the other thing I wanted to talk about just before we get into like this is the 70s. One of the most seminal films for young Brian is Los Monstros del Terror, or as Assignment Terror, which is a Paul Naschy film about aliens trying to get all the monsters together and taking over the world with them. Get all the underwear and get rich. And I honestly remember reading that description in the TV guide, when I was like 8, going like, this is brilliant. I've got to see this film. And of course, it's a stupid movie. It's a movie that stuck with me and I adore it. But the mummy in that film is absolutely terrifying looking. It looks just like the Mego action figure, which is weird, but it is quite an interesting look. I don't know, like what I would assume is a low budget film. Like the monsters aren't a good look in the film. They kind of look a little dime store. So they got somebody who looked a little weird and creepy to play the mummy.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, really works. And that was a huge one for me. And I think that was like one of the bigger things of the 70s. There were not a lot of mummy movies in the 70s, mainly I think because we moved into that milieu of supernatural horror, The Exorcist. I'm just trying to think what else. Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
It became like we kind of like I think we move away from the traditional monsters and then they come back, and I think the Dracula movies were sort of done for a while after, I think, Satanic Rites of Dracula in 73, and you didn't really get a big Dracula movie until that John Badham remake in the late 70s.
Yeah, well, hey, Love at First Bite too, same year.
Oh, pardon me. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Dueling Draculas in 79, very much like the James Bond Face Off of 83 with Never Say Never Again and Octopussy. No, but yeah,
we should do a Never Say Never Again episode.
We should.
I want to watch it again.
I won't say never.
Freaking bizarre.
It's very, very weird movie.
Yeah.
It's that so it's pretty barren for a while, and then you get 79 with the two Draculas. You get The Awakening in 80.
In 80, yeah.
When do you get any other significant mummy? Wait a second. Aren't we missing something? Wasn't there there had to be TV movies, and besides the cartoons, the Mummy showed up in everything from Scooby-Doo to probably.
Oh yeah, no, Scooby-Doo, Super Friends, Mummies, Plastic Man. In fact, I think in 1980 I watched an episode. There was an episode of Spider-Woman. Remember that awful Spider-Woman cartoon?
Sure do.
Where it's a two-parter where Spider-Man joins them. And it's like a mummy that's turning other people into mummies, thus enslaving everyone. So I don't know what, they're just all in bandages. And
he's lonely.
It's that terrible Marvel Studios production values of that time where the music is just super overbearing, you know,
Yeah.
ba-na-na-na-na-na, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there was, mummies were not out of the public eye. There was, I think there was probably a fantasy island with mummies. Let's
Well,
just
what
throw
was the
that there.
wasn't there okay, so you had Monster Squad. It was probably one but as a live action sort of thing. But wasn't there? Am I thinking of Cliffhangers? Am I thinking of something else that had a mummy in it, or some other TV movie? Or I know there was I know for sure there was a Curse of Tut something. I think Tom Baker was even in it, and it was a TV. It was a network TV thing that I thought involved a mummy or a curse or somebody getting eaten or something. I don't know, but wasn't there more TV mummy stuff?
I think so. I just can't. It'll come to me after we wrap. You're probably right. I think no. Cliffhangers. I'm not sure if there were mummies on Cliffhangers.
Okay. There was a Dracula thing, right? Was that the one?
Yeah, there was a Dracula thing, and there was a Perils of Pauline type show, and then there was what was the Phantom Empire.
Oh yeah.
Which, but I don't think there was actually mummies.
Okay.
In '81 though, and this is a movie I really like, and I was posting about in the Pod Stallions group, is somebody, I think it's an Italian filmmaker. Dawn of the Dead did really well internationally. And so this company made a movie called Dawn of the Mummy, which is just somebody scratched out zombie in the script and wrote mummy. And it's actually pretty good. It's a good piece of sleaze. But it is not a terrific film. It's just kind of a fun movie, but it's definitely not your typical mummy movie. I like it, and I recommend people to look at it, but it is what it is. Then there's a film called Time Walker, which is about an alien mummy. It is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think Mystery Science Theater did that one.
I recognize that. Yeah.
I know Fred Olin Ray did a film called The Tomb, but I can't recommend it because I haven't seen it. And I tell you a Fred Olin Ray story. I was looking for somebody posted a film. I think it was Jim Warnowski posted something on Facebook the other day, and I was like, "Hey, is that available on Blu-ray?" And I got an answer immediately that said, "No, it's coming out next month," and it was Fred Olin Ray.
Oh,
it was like, thanks, like So
prove it, or I don't believe.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. It was like, oh, all right. I guess that's.
It's funny because I was thinking of all this TV stuff. Like we always talk about these deep dives of going down, Amazon Prime alley, and suddenly you come across something and you're like, oh my God, I haven't even thought of this in however long, but here it is. Got it. They've got the Addams Family Halloween special, the new Addams Family Halloween special from 1977.
It's a hard one for me to
watch. Now I'm gonna say this. I haven't seen it. I found it the other night. And I've only watched about 20 minutes, but there might be a mummy in it. I don't know yet.
It's shot on video, isn't it?
I remember, I swear on my life, I either remember the night this aired or they repeated it the year later that I was dressed as Darth Vader to go out.
Yeah, I think I saw it on repeat.
I think they repeated it a year later, and I went, oh my gosh, because at that point I knew the show from watching it after school, and I was like, oh, hey, is this new? Like, this is in color. Like, my mind was blown.
And it looks cheap as chips.
But do you know that there is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away joke that's repeated in the special, and I looked it up, and it aired like October 29th, 1977. So they must have written this thing, October 1st or whatever they put. But Star Wars was so ubiquitous
Oh yeah. That they had to throw those jokes.
That they're already throwing those jokes in, and they had a Mikey joke. They had three adults sitting around a table, and it's like, well, let's get Mikey to go. Mikey will do anything. And they cut to a grown man like eating soup. It's like, hey, Mikey, do you want to go do this thing? And you're like, oh yeah, the Mikey commercial. Back when commercials ran for what seemed like years, they would just
back
run.
When we had a communal pop culture too.
Yeah. Yes, either a jingle or a commercial that you're like.
Can't remember. I was trying to watch They Call Me Bruce.
Oh boy.
Which I haven't seen since I was like 11. And I remember really having favorable thoughts of it. And then you watch it now, and it's parodying commercials you've forgotten.
Right.
You know, right. And you're just sitting there going, what's the reference? You know? Yeah. So yeah, it's one of also, those things.
You're saying, just not to be that guy, but you're saying the title wrong. It's They Call Me Bruce?
Oh my gosh, you're right. They Call Me Bruce?
Is it as a question?
Is that good enough for you?
Did they call me Bruce, I think, up at the end? Yeah, it's funny how much, but you just go, well, yeah, that stuff would have been a reference that everybody seeing that would have gotten, because it was every freaking day, 1,000 times a day, you're seeing that commercial. And everybody, would have sort of gotten the joke. But anyway, I had to mention the Addams Family thing, because I swear I watched that when maybe the repeat, and haven't seen it since. And man, when Lisa Loring shows up, holy moly, that was quite a shock as a kid. Like, is that her?
I lost my headphones. Hang on. Sorry, man. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just saying something rude about Lisa Loring, but not really.
Yeah, she was very attractive, as I recall.
Good gravy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and Pugsley also, Trey sexy.
Pugsley, way sexy Barnett. I'll tell you that. That hair grew out really, really well. There was a mummy in that. I don't remember, but we don't really get. Are you telling me that we don't really get a full on big budget mummy thing until the 1999 Mummy? Is that the next thing we?
Sorry, no, we do get The Awakening in 1980.
We get that in 80,
which I do think of as like, 1980, the 70s cynicism. This is probably the best we were going to get. You know what I mean? Like, it has to be rationalized at that point. And we aren't really willing to go into deep fantasy with the character, and we're being parodied. I think there's a Mummy in Saturday the 14th, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's a weird. Good God, that's a weird movie. What the hell is that?
I don't hate it.
It is weird. It is just like, what is going on? I think I found it a while ago, and I got through like 30 minutes and just.
I think it's on Shout Factory, right?
What is going on? I don't know. I was on a Richard Benson.
There's some good stuff in there, but yeah, I get it. I'm just trying to think. We got Dawn of the Mummy. Yeah, okay. No, I would say the best 80s mummy thing would be the Monster Squad, the film, where you're getting Dracula.
Yeah, we got that. I forgot. That's right.
Yeah. I don't, because I'm not, I was probably like 16 when that came out. I don't have the adoration for it that a lot of people do. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's a weird movie. It doesn't know if it wants to be a kid's film or a adult film. It kind of goes weird all over the place with that. But I love the designs of the monsters.
To be fair, you've described a lot of movies from 76 to the mid, where you're seeing things where you're going like that. I mean, like we always talk. I mean, Flash Gordon. Never a bad time to talk about Flash Gordon. It's loaded with sexual innuendo and S&M stuff, and it's like,
yeah, it's pretty, yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few things that are like what? Like, really? That's this. Who is this aimed at? Like, how did this sort of happen? It's got. I mean, I know exactly what you're saying about that movie. I think it's great. I do not have the love for it that people do, but I think it's it's a fun, it's a great movie. But it is the tone. It shifts here and there. I don't think the whole thing is all over the place, but it does shift a bit, and it's a strange concoction. I mean, I'm sort of glad it exists, but there wasn't, but the Mummy was bad in that, right? Because the Mummy was part of the bad guys. The Mummy.
Yeah, he was. And I really actually like the designs of the characters.
And is it Stan Winston who did all those? Is that right?
I think you're right. Yeah, I think. I seem to remember the name of the guy who designed that creature, because that creature was such a big deal at the time.
Yeah, they had to veer.
I can't remember his name now.
They had to veer from the, from the original design, right? They couldn't do anything they couldn't do any of the creatures looking like.
They had to go from the original Universal licensed stuff, because they didn't. I don't think they had any. I don't think they owned it.
Right.
And then so that was probably like the Mummy's biggest thing in the 80s, and then somebody redid in 88. Is it 88? Oh no, I'm wrong. That was in 98. The Scooby-Doo did some stuff. Waxworks had a mummy in it. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Waxwork.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's not a terrible movie.
No, I kind of like that film. Haven't seen it in a long time, so I can't really pontificate on it. But it was directed by a guy by the name of Anthony Hickox, who was kind of a big name in horror at the time. He made a couple of films like Warlock and Waxworks and stuff like that. And I don't know whatever happened to that dude. I always thought he would. Oh, he's still directing apparently, but I haven't seen anything he's done. And then I think the biggest Mummy thing to happen at the end of the decade would have been Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, which had that Lot 249 story that starred Christian Slater.
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi.
Yes.
And forget who the girl is in that, but she's famous too. Like everybody's famous.
They're like at a university, and he's
it's actually probably my favorite story in Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, because the rest of them are, a little silly.
That's the one I kind of remember. I'm not sure if I remember the other ones.
There's a killer cat story, and there's a gargoyle monster story.
Is that the one? Is that the one with Debbie Harry?
She's the wraparound.
Yeah, that's the main reason I think.
Julianne Moore is in that. That's like the first movie with Julianne Moore.
Oh.
That's probably the best story in the movie, and I really like that because, he ends up killing the mummy, and then of course it doesn't matter because it's all about the curse, and I like that. In 93, there's a movie called The Mummy Lives that stars Tony Curtis. And I got to tell you, I've never seen it. But it is in every DVD bin ever. And it always gets me because I say, oh, a mummy movie. And then you're like, oh, the cover looks bad. And I've never seen it. It's like, so I have no bearing on it other than I've rejected purchasing it about 100 times.
Tony Curtis is the lead?
Yeah, Tony Curtis. Yeah. In 93. So, he's kind of like late in life at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what the film's about or if it's any good. I can't imagine it's any good just looking at the cover of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, again, a mummy returning from the dead, becoming obsessed, It has like no, I don't know anyone that's seen this film, so it's probably not great. I'm just gonna go on record, and it isn't even in. And like when you look at Wikipedia, it isn't even in the list of mummy movies, even though it is called The Mummy Lives.
Right. And if you're a big Tony Curtis fan, so if you're
my God, Tony Curtis, yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. And then the 90s really, you had another remake of The Jewel of the Seven Stars, which I have not seen. Russell Mulcahy made a movie called Tale of the Mummy, which I have also not seen, but it's got Christopher Lee in it. My goodness. I might actually check this one out. It's got Jason Scott Lee, Sean Pertwee, Honor Blackman, Shelley Duvall. Wow.
You had me at Russell Mulcahy.
Yeah, no, I'm into that. So that'll be one I'll check out. But then, of course, we have to segue into Stephen Sommers' 1999, The Mummy. What did you think of that?
I think I've only seen it once since it came out, but I've always kind of had a soft spot for Brendan Fraser. I even more so now. Like, I'm so glad that he's sort of getting, recognition in spite of, all the ups and downs he's had and whatever. Like, there was a time where he was A-list and he was doing a ton of stuff, Gods and Monsters, etc. But I remember seeing it in the theater and having a great time and just, accepting it for what it was, and, tons of CGI and all that stuff. But I had no issue with it. I had no dog in the fight, so to speak, and it was fine to me. And I think I've seen it once since, and it, it's a little big and broad in places, but it keeps moving and there's interesting stuff in it. I mean, it's, I think it's fine.
I like it. I did in the theater. I remember thinking, this guy's using CGI a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, as much as I like it, I am so glad that Stephen Sommers never got to do his Flash Gordon reboot.
Yes, I agree.
Because I've never liked anything else by the guy. And it's not that he's a bad director, that the first Mummy movie is great. It's that there's this like over reliance on CGI, to the point of making it cartoony, and it followed him into everything else he did. Von Helsing and that first G.I. Joe movie, which I'm not passionate G.I. Joe fan, but it was like, why would you not use iconic designs and imagery? Like, why would you choose not to use like the look of Cobra Commander that everyone knows, like that they've spent millions
completely
branding
baffling. Did he do one or two Mummy sequels before?
I don't know. I'm just about to look that up because full disclosure, I liked this film. I also have a Brendan Fraser thing, and I've told you this before. I've been mistaken, like, especially back in the 90s, I used to be mistaken for Brendan Fraser.
Well, you were dreamy back then.
Yeah, I was. Beautiful eyes. And, now I'm still getting mistaken for Brendan Fraser.
Oh, come on.
Come on. But I really was, I've always liked the dude. I absolutely love him in Doom Patrol.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah.
He is sublime in Doom Patrol. And I realize that people are going to, it's mostly a voice. Yeah, it is mostly a voice.
Yeah,
but he's incredible with what he does with that voice. And you know what else he's really good in that I think is you're gonna think this is weird? a completely unnecessary remake, but he's wonderful in it, is the Bedazzled remake.
Oh no, you and I have to fight.
No,
I like him in it, but I do not.
Completely unnecessary remake, completely ill-advised.
No, you could have remade that, but you would have given it to Bob Odenkirk and David Cross.
Right, but his performance in it.
Oh no, he's great. He's a great little sad sack. But I love Bedazzled is my favorite comedy of all time, and it's the cook and more energy that makes that. So what you need in a film like that is you need that kind of chemistry. You need that kind of comic timing. It was written by a comedy duo. So if you're going to remake that,
I get that, but it's like I said, her Elizabeth
dude,
she's terrible in it. She's really,
Elizabeth Hurley is all I thought about in the 90s.
She's awful in it, but when he's suddenly speaking Spanish because he's a drug lord or whatever it is, like he has a comic.
Oh no, he's not the problem with the film.
No, that's what I'm saying. He is wonderful in that film, and I'm saying he even in bad stuff, I have found.
Oh yeah, no, he's
good. So I'm glad that the Doom Patrol thing is. I think he's just now been cast as Firefly in the Batgirl movie or something movie or something.
I didn't even know.
Just glad that he's sort of showing up and stuff and being acknowledged, because I mean he's obviously looks very different than he did in 1999 in George of the Jungle and all that stuff, and I think he's been through some shit.
I think he's honestly been through some crap.
Yeah, I've always liked him. I think he's underrated, and he really does even crap like that awful Looney Tunes thing. Like he's giving 1,000%.
Why were there Daleks in that thing?
Because why not? No.
I really need someone to sit me down.
Anything to distract from the rest of the film that I could put in my review. But I think that first movie. So I think they did. Did they do 3? Did he do 2 of those?
What happened was Stephen Sommers did direct The Mummy Returns. I've never seen it. And then there was Tomb of the Dragon Emperor was in 2008. There was a spin-off called The Scorpion King where there's I think there's 11 of them. I've never I never saw any of them. I knew going into that one and coming out of that one that I enjoyed that film. I do not need to see how far that guy gets with the cartoony special effects and the I tapped out. I was like, that was great. And
I don't think I ever saw the other one. I don't even know if Fraser did 2 or 3 or I don't know.
He did a bunch, and
shit. Okay.
The thing that makes me laugh about that is that my son is a big fan of that series. He thinks it's awesome. He loves Brendan Fraser, and he thinks that those are great films. And the other day, we were kind of joking. I saw somebody had a picture of a bumper sticker that said, "I'd rather be watching the 1999 Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. Honk if you agree." And I just thought that was so weird that I sent it to my son, and he's like, "Oh, I'd be honking at that car."
That is one specific bumper sticker.
Yeah, it was funny as hell, but I truly enjoy.
I'd rather be watching the Gus Van Sant Psycho than
no one has that bumper sticker.
Who's that guy?
Smash that guy's car. Stop him.
Who had that bumper sticker made? How many of those did they find? Those people, whoever bought that.
Now, I've never seen a Scorpion King movie. My son has, I think, seen all of them, and it's what's that German word, Schadenfreude? Like he just thinks they're funny, because
wait a second. Schadenfreude is when
shameful joy.
You don't want something bad to happen to the neighbor guy you really don't like, but when he trips and falls on the ice, you kind of giggle.
Yeah, but I mean,
but you're like, better him than me.
I think my son has seen them because Tamora Morrison's in some of them, and his whole world is that.
Oh yeah, he's in them too.
Yeah, he's in at least the third one. These are direct to videos.
King or the Mummy ones are direct to
the Scorpion King ones.
Oh, he's loving the Scorpion King.
He's a fan of the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies, and then he's also, because he was a kid
right through the Scorpion
when those were like being rerun like crazy on basic cable, and then he likes these Scorpion King ones because they star people he likes. And
I got you.
About a month ago, about 3-4 months ago, like we have this like Facebook group for our neighbors, and some person that was moving is like, there's a huge box of DVDs on my lawn, just come take them. This is during COVID, and I was walking the dog, and it was like Catwoman, Starship Troopers, and like, all for Brian.
Yeah. Is this a trap? Am I about to... like you grab,
is a big net gonna fall on me right now?
You get swept up in a net like Planet of the Apes. You're like, they put out a little trap for Brian. Like these movies that nobody likes. Brian touches the first one and he's up in a cage, hanging from a tree for weeks.
I think it actually reminded me a lot of like that Homer thing where his neighbor's throwing out garbage and he's like, coat hangers, expired medication. like who the hell, like, by the way, I got home and this thing had like all these Starship Troopers sequels that I didn't know existed. And it had all these Mummy movies that, like, holy crap, like there's like 7 of these things. So I don't know.
I'd really like to know is how long it sat there before how many people walked past it and just went, I'm good. I'm like, they're free, but I'm good.
I think the post was done in earnest.
The guy in the house with binoculars going, that Hyler guy's about to come by any second now. Just wait. Trust me. He's gonna take
I think what really happened, and this is that they posted it. And I put my shoes on, dude, and I just like, that's just over there on
you're standing as he puts them on the ground. You're like, you're right.
Yeah, it was actually on a street that's aproposly named Hodgson after Joel Hodgson, and I just like.
I didn't even post it yet. How did you get here?
Yeah, no, they posted it, and I was like, let's go for a walk, and I grabbed this, and it was a huge box, and
wow.
My wife was like, what are you doing?
I don't know what to think about all of this, or how much time you're spending on Facebook, what's in the box. Like, I don't know how to process any of it right now. This is a lot of information.
Literally, I got about 30 DVDs. Some really good stuff in there, like...
I want to hear an example of one of the good ones, one of the A-list.
Spider-Man 2.
Okay, yeah.
What's the next? Spider-Man 2 a lot.
It's a good. What's the next one?
I love Catwoman. I absolutely love Catwoman. Unironically.
I know you do. I know you do.
I think, and I've also postulated this theory that there is no difference in plot and story between Venom and Catwoman. Prove me wrong.
This is a conversation that no one has had. If you can copyright this, I think you're onto something. I feel your 4th book brewing in you right now. The great Catwoman Venom debate of 2021.
just a picture of Halle Berry and Venom and a big question mark.
And like a 400-page book.
400 page
the similarities between the two films.
The same.
That woman didn't get its due. I love it.
That woman is.
All right, so besides all those mummy movies, what did we get? What was the next thing we got? Because he's really been kind of shortchanged the last 20 years or so, hasn't he?
Well, not really, because you got like stuff like, and this is one where I wanted to go to, called Bubba Ho Tep, where it's Bruce Campbell playing Elvis at a retirement home. I think basically killing an Aztec mummy.
I've got the limited edition copy of that it's in the little Elvis little jumper, white jacket.
What a fun movie that is.
It is, yeah, and it's Coscarelli. What's not to like?
He's the Phantasm and Beastmaster man.
And he does a great adaptation, a low budget flick of a book called John Dies at the End.
Oh, yeah, I've been meaning to watch that.
Great sleeper of a movie and great cast. Giamatti's in it. Clancy Brown is in it. I forget the lead kid, but he's great in everything he does. But it's a weird book, and the fact that Coscarelli did it, it's a little gem of a movie. I recommend it.
And then I'm just trying to think. Russell Mulcahy made a King Tut television film. Oh, it's got Casper Van Dien in it. So
you don't have it on DVD.
I don't. I didn't realize that Mil Mascaras, the Mexican wrestler, made a lucha libre film called Mil Mascaras versus the Aztec Mummy. That kind of is a callback to the 50s Aztec Mummy.
What's that about?
It's about I get you.
Okay, so okay, what next?
I
can't believe we haven't really gotten a significant one, right? Like no big. Wait a minute. Wasn't there? Did we talk about Van Helsing? Wasn't there one in Van Helsing?
No, there wasn't.
Oh, there was
Mummy and Van Helsing that I recall. It was like everything but, because it was directed by Stephen Sommers. Now I hated that movie.
Let me tell you.
Now I know I have a friend who owns the Blu-ray and loves it, and he has told me I have to watch the black and white edition. I have not done that, but I might be bored enough to.
There's the black and white edition of Van Helsing.
Yeah.
You know who doesn't mind not being in the Van Helsing movie? The Mummy. The Mummy was like, woo.
Yeah.
Dodge that bullet. Holy shit! I got another 20 years in me that maybe someone's gonna. Woo! I'm still prime choice.
Yeah, but he has to go over to like Frankenstein's house with some Haagen-Dazs.
Right.
Yeah, I know, De Niro. I know.
Right, and not mention Van Helsing or De Niro or anything.
Yeah,
No, it was good. No, really, I mean, I'm serious.
I loved it. It's the critics that are wrong.
I wish I could have been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if I've actually finished Van Helsing, but I'll tell you this: if I did, it was in like 3 sittings. I think I caught part of it once, and then I caught another part of it again, and then I saw the ending years later or something. And it's beyond.
I'm so excited for that film.
Paper, it was like, oh yeah, bring it.
Yeah,
like,
and I saw the dolls on the Toys R Us, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. But some of the designs were somewhat bothersome to me at the time. I remember that, but yeah, no, not my favorite.
It would have been something really cool. I just remember reading about it as it was sort of announced in the synopsis and going, oh, this could be. He certainly did something decent with the mummy thing. Like what could possibly go wrong?
Actually I was a fan of the first Mummy movie, and
I was fine with it.
Yeah, and then this thing was like, oh my god.
That was the summer that it was the Mummy, Phantom Menace, the Matrix, the Iron Giant,
yeah,
Mystery Men, And I can't think of what else. There was something else big that sort of came out in Sixth Sense, I think, were like all the big movies. I remember that I was living in New York at the time. I just remember that just wanting to go to a theater just for air conditioning, like just to be cool because it was 1,000 degrees and muggy. But yeah, I saw it in New York and I thought it was fun. It was perfectly fun. The Mummy.
Yeah, that movie will forever remind me of a very short period in my life where all my friends, like I moved back to my hometown. I bought a house with my wife. I lived behind my friend's parents, and he got divorced and moved back with his parents. And we would spend every Friday night, because his parents like lived at their cottage and they were retired. And so we would spend every Friday night like going to a movie or going to the bars and then going back to his place and, drinking and smoking, And I can honestly remember where I was for The Matrix, for this movie, for the stupid American Pie movies. That was a really fun summer. It was, it was amazing. Like, I was still in my 20s, and I really enjoyed that period of my life very, very much, almost too much.
Well, I hated that period of my life, but
oopsie poopsie.
But we don't have to get into that. But we probably saw all the same movies. I remember loving The Iron Giant when it came out, and just like nobody being able to talk to nobody about that movie.
Full disclosure, I've never seen it.
Oh,
yeah,
that surprises me.
Well, it looked like a kid's movie to me, and but it probably wasn't. Speaking of kids movies, The Mummy did get
enough time that it was not really a kids movie. It's much.
No, I know, but then I felt like I kind of missed the boat, and it's sort of like that friend who spoiled The Sixth Sense for me, and it was like, all right.
Wow. Okay, that's complex. Okay, so
yeah, no, a friend of mine spoiled The Sixth Sense for me, really bad.
Eyes Wide Shut. That was the other one. Eyes Wide Shut. I just remember the stunned, like, I can't believe we're getting a new Kubrick, and then just coming out into the daylight, like, what happened? Like, what was that?
I let my wife go to that with her friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, no, I'll be fine. I'm gonna just play online and play video games.
Yeah.
And she came home and was like, I should have played video games with you.
Okay, so then where does that bring us to Mummy?
Well, the speaking of kids films, The Mummy, played by Kevin James, was in the Hotel Transylvania series, which I actually really liked because I had small children, and
that is
yeah, it is. It's a
I'm
super
kidding.
Excuse. Yeah. It is the only excuse.
I saw part of one of them, and when just hearing Adam Sandler do bleh, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, I look, I love monster rallies. Like, I love the idea of all these monsters getting together, and seeing my kid. Like, I did take my daughter when she was very young to see the Universal Mummy and the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when the credits rolled on the Wolfman, I looked over at her and she was crying. Like, this had moved her. And so I'm just an old school monster guy. So no matter the interpretation or the look, I enjoy it. And I liked the Hotel Transylvania. It was probably the last, like, I think she would have been about 7 at that time. It's probably one of the last kids movie I took her to, like then I started getting into, I took her to Godzilla movies. I took her, like it became a little bit less kidified. And now, of course, like, I mean, she wants to see movies that are smarter than me. But I've taken her to see Faster Pussycat Kill Kill and stuff like that at this point. But we should crescendo into the last great attempt to reboot The Mummy, and that would be the Universal Dark Universe, which I liked. I always thought the marketing should be the Avengers, but with monsters. That's what I thought they should call it. Where they
this is the Tom.
This is the Alex Kurtzman, Tom Cruise extravaganza that just it almost died. I think before it even came out. Like how do you? I don't even know how to explain it, but it just got so much bad press, and people wanted it to die.
Yeah, too bad, because I have to say, I don't care how anybody thinks of this or how controversial. I finally, I think I watched it, don't even remember it. Came across it again, maybe 6 months, a year ago, maybe a year ago, whatever it was, and watched it and was like, this is fine. Like, this is not, when you like, everybody's got their degrees of whatever. Like, I saw Catwoman. I love that you love it. Okay, it is.
I love it because it's terrible.
You love it because it's terrible. I look at this Mummy thing and I'm okay. It's got some issues, but it's not like it's worse than the '99 Mummy. In fact, I think it was PG-13, and some of the violence and like the undead. The constant dread, and the fact that, well, I don't want to spoil it, but the fact that, what happens to the lead character, there's some interesting stuff in there. It is not this, sometimes these things come along that are just like, oh my God. It's like, then you finally see it and you go, what's the real hang up with this? Like, it's not this mega piece of crap that everybody sort of assumes or thinks that it is. I don't think there's anything in it that's any more silly or dumb than the '99 Mummy, really. It's just, your mileage, everyone's mileage is going to vary, but I don't get why that. I mean, it really bombed. Like, the whole thing just went completely under, the whole possibility, and I'm not sure why. Maybe because it wasn't marketing it. Was marketing it more for him than a creature of some kind or something. I don't know, but.
You want to know something funny?
Sure.
I 100% agree with you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I don't think it's.
I watched it, and maybe how like you watch a film and people are like, "Oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever," and then you walk in and you're like, "This sucks." Like Forrest Gump was just completely ruined for me by every human being I met, was talking about how fucking great that was, and it was
going like, it was, Robert
Zemeckis. It was a film.
And all of a sudden it becomes a way of life, and I'm going, what in the world did I in this messaging, especially in the year of Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
Where how did this become the biggest thing ever that year? It's beyond me. And people have just Pulp Fiction on their shelves, then own a copy of freaking Forrest Gump. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and it's just like I never got it, and I wasn't happy about it. But anyway, the one that really got to me with this one, though, was like it was the opposite of that, where I went in going, here comes a train wreck. And I'm not a fan of Tom Cruise. I think he's nuts. And then you watch this movie and go, okay, yeah, it's got some derivative moments. It's got some American Werewolf derivative moments. I am hugely smitten with Sophia Boutella.
Oh,
I could watch her read
a
phone book. Yeah.
She's always, on point. Everything she's doing. Yeah.
But like my wife said to me, like after, like she goes, I like this movie. It's not that bad. I enjoyed that film.
And it's dark. I mean, it's it's not for kids,
I get it that they were trying to franchise build, and they were trying to do that whole, like, we're making the Avengers with monsters, which I think is stupid. But I personally enjoyed it for what it was, and I'll probably watch it again. It's not scary, but it is an interesting way of, like, reinventing the mythology of the Mummy. And yeah, no, I was completely fine with it. I liked it.
I don't recall it being. Here's I'm not gonna, this isn't a show about Dune, but obviously the new version of Dune. but I'm just gonna say, for those of you that haven't seen it or that have, whatever, if I were to sum it up to anybody, I would say that it's economical, the way Blade Runner 2049 is economical. There's not a wasted second of screen time that is telling you something or is signaling something, or you're paying attention to someone's eyes moving across the room or whatever it is. Every single scene leads to the next scene. It is all there. And I don't care how pulpy something is or how classic or how, genre, whatever it is, if you're constantly hitting me in the head, and if you're not just telling me, you're showing me, or sometimes doing two or three things at the same time to really hit me over the head with it, I check out. And I never felt in this Mummy thing that it was, I feel like it respected the audience's intelligence to a degree in a way that many other genre things don't. And certain, action films or comic book things or whatever. I mean, I tried the Snyder cut again the other night, and it was just like, again, people love this thing, and they're absolutely. And I don't think it's like, total garbage. But all I kept thinking was, every single solitary scene is constantly telling me and showing me what it thinks I'm too stupid to understand. And I find that just infuriating, because there's plenty of stuff that gets made that you go, you don't need to do, just let it breathe, and it's whatever. And I remember, watching that Cruise Mummy thing and just going, well, this is just kind of, what the F is going on? And then, it takes that turn toward the beginning, and then you're discovering it as he goes. I never liked Tom Cruise either, but I'll say this. By the time the third Mission Impossible, I started to warm to him, not in everything, but he didn't annoy me the way he always did. I felt like he was putting more effort into things, and I think he's great in War of the Worlds. I think he does a terrific job with that character. He does the job in this. He does, you believe he's in these situations, and that sometimes that's all it kind of takes, And I think if no one out there has seen it, I think it's worth giving a try. It's an interesting failure, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not great. It isn't a world-building franchise film, but it isn't as bad as everybody wants to make it out to be either. And I love a train wreck. I love Schadenfreude. But this isn't it.
I agree. I totally agree. I think it's it surprised me as I was watching it, just going, oh, this isn't that bad. Like, yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, there's some violence. There's some darkness.
There's some good effects. There's some good scenes.
Yeah.
And that's great. I'm kind of glad. Well, I'm sure people would like the conflict, but I'm kind of glad we're on the same page with that.
I'm remembering now that we did talk about. I thought we did talk about it at a point, and you were like, "Oh, I thought it was pretty good too." And it was like, it was a while.
We could have in private, not on the show.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I'm glad you liked it, but it's who knows now? Once again, like we were saying off air, who knows when we're ever going to get another Mummy adventure, because all anybody's going to do is look at the previous thing and go, stay away from that title or whatever.
I think what we're going to end up with is a reboot of the Brendan Fraser films now. I think things are that slow, or that shallow. That's what we'll do.
Oh, okay. Like continue the story, or like remake the story, or continue it with other people, like the same.
No, they'll just reboot that shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, might as well. It's an interesting it's an interesting character monster that I think looms larger in its image. And wouldn't you say that 90% of any mummy things are it's Karloff. It's that Karloff, merchandise.
No, actually, I would actually say that if you're of a certain age, it's the Karras, it's the Lon Chaney Jr. that was the thing that stuck out for us. He was
like all the the candy and the
candy, the model kits. They were never Karloff.
It was all
always Karras. Always had the bloody eye. Always had the arm wraps.
Okay.
The most of that's the thing that really bothers me to this day. And when you're talking to like Migo or anybody, they're like, yeah, we can't do Karras. And so it kind of sucks in that regard, because they aren't able to do what Universal's got the Karloff likeness locked down. Mm-hmm. But I think things get a little sketch with the Chaney likeness. And I don't even know where to go with the Tom Tyler thing, but yeah, they can't seem to do Karras anymore. And I find that really disappointing, because like Karras is childhood to me.
See, and that's interesting. So that's interesting, because I just pulled down the Too Much Horror Business.
Oh yeah. In fact, I have sold Kirk one piece from my collection, and guess what it was? It was a carded jiggler of Karras.
Oh, no kidding!
And it was reenacted on Toy Hunter, because that's where it was for. Oh. But this is a funny story. You know our mutual friend Mark Huckabone.
Sure, I know Mark Huckabone.
So he phoned me one day and he said, "Look, I gotta do an episode of Toy Hunter where we're gonna go to Kirk Hammett's house. Do you have anything he doesn't have in his collection?" And I owed Mark money at that time. I think I owed him a couple $100. And I was like, you know what I do? I absolutely do, because I had just gotten that horror book. And I sent him my carded AHI, Azrak Hamway, jiggler mummy on the card, which I will never see again. I'll never own one of those again. And I threw in a copy of Rack Toys. And Mark said, yeah, thanks a lot. And I go, what? And he goes, well, apparently, like, Kirk was so excited about the book that we had trouble filming with him, because he just kept sitting down and looking through the book.
Oh, that's great.
And he stole Mark's copy of the book, because the book was for Mark. It was, to Mark, and he's like, yeah, Kirk stole that.
What the hell? But hard up for cash?
What's that?
That's what the hell, Hammett. You hard up for cash? You
no. You know what it is. Like, so what was funny about that episode was it was a Halloween episode of Toy Hunter, and they reenacted that scene, but now it was Jordan calling a guy he knew who did not have anything. I think it was a guy who lived in LA. And it was really funny, because it was, he just had like sideshow stuff. And he's like, oh, I've got just the thing. And then they cut to Jordan handing Kurt this box with my frickin' handwriting all over it.
Are you trying to imply that a reality series,
television shows are fake? Yes, I am. Yes, I absolutely am.
Would be fudging with actual information? How dare you?
I remember texting Mark the night that aired and going like, I have problems with the actor who portrayed me.
Nice. He's gonna win an Emmy. So I'm looking at this book, and I mean there's like the Remco mummy, like that's Karloff on the box, right? I mean that's the image.
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't you say the image of Karloff though was on more stuff? Like
no, I think that swapped around the 80s.
Okay.
And because when in the 60s and the 70s, it's always about Karis.
Okay.
And then, yeah, like Remco, their mummy is the first one, I think, that is Imhotep. And their 3-inch figure is Imhotep. Their 8-inch figure is Imhotep. Imperial, when they did the monsters, their mummy was actually the Abbott and Costello mummy, which isn't even a real mummy. And there really wasn't a the Karis train stopped around 1980, but when we were kids, it was all Karis all the time. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And I don't know. I think there's a lot going on in the background. Like when I was doing Toy Ventures magazine, you found out that like the Lugosi family had been in litigation with Universal since the 60s.
Oh yeah, I interviewed.
And then all of a sudden, Remco did a 9-inch Dracula that looked like Count Yorga, and then they did a 3 3/4-inch Dracula, and it's Bella. And you're like, well, how did they get I went through the paperwork, and they had lost their case at that point. So like a judge threw them out, and they basically, Universal went full on Bella, we're good, for a while, and then somehow the worm turned.
Yeah, I actually interviewed him about it, Junior, about it, and
Did you?
Yeah, at a horror convention some years ago, after a screening of Dracula. Interviewed him on stage and asked about the lawsuit and stuff. And it's an interesting story how it all sort of came to be. And I realize people are very mixed about it, and for obvious reasons, but it's also like there's so much of pop culture that people don't get rewarded for.
Yeah, we were doing a thing for Toy Ventures. Sorry, I'm talking over you, man. It's because I can't hear you.
No, go.
We were doing a thing for Toy Ventures about, for the last issue, about Baby Frankenstein. I'm sure you read about it.
I did in my copy of Toy Ventures magazine.
Yeah, and there's a thing where it shows Baby Frankenstein and the new Bride of Frankenstein, and you're sitting there like, why is there a new Bride of Frankenstein? And then you start to think about it, and Elsa Lanchester was still alive at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't parading around the amusement park with her likeness, and they still aren't. Mego did not get her likeness. They have to use this kind of, pardon me, I keep hitting my mic. They have to use this kind of like fake Bride of Frankenstein. That's why I didn't buy the Bride of Frankenstein, because they can't actually make something that looks like Elsa Lanchester anymore.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, my history with what we've done and likenesses and the process and everything, but in a way, it's like, it's a drag, but it's also like, it really what Lugosi Jr. did, and I could be getting some of this wrong, but it really was precedent setting for everything to follow it, everything that
and I don't how do I put this? I don't begrudge him, because he's got a point. But yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's kind of like, the way I always sort of thought about it was like, if it was my dad did something and like millions and millions of dollars are being made off of this.
Yeah.
And certain now deals are made where it's like, yep, you want to sign on for this thing, we've got your likeness and we've got this and we've got that, and everybody sort of has to do the deal up front. But that was, I think before it was just, we can do whatever we want, like we can just keep churning this shit out. And so it's tricky, but isn't it?
Although to be honest with you, they didn't even know they would have a second life to this stuff. Like television changed everything, right? And all of a sudden, people want to merchandise their movies from 25 years ago. They're like, okay.
His story was a friend that had, I think it was a friend that had an Aurora kit or something, some piece of merchandise that he wasn't aware of. And they brought it to his attention or something. And he was like, what is this? Like, wasn't aware of it. And then started, doing the research. And I think, it took a long, long time, I think. And I don't know. And now I don't know how much Bella stuff has been made in the last,
Have I ever told you my Mark Leonard story, or have I done it on this? I've probably done it on this podcast.
This is the one where he wouldn't sign. He got pissed about the Romulan figure, and
what happened was, I brought 2 figures with me. I brought my General Urko, and I brought my friend's carded Romulan.
Yes, I remember.
And he was signing at he was starting at a Star Trek convention. And I was probably 18, and I had those things in my backpack, now you'd have them in like a lucite case. And he looked at the General Urko and was like, well, I didn't get paid for this. What is this? And it's like, how did you not see this ever?
Well, he's busy.
Then I'm being your typical 18-year-old punk. And I go, oh, you're really going to get upset at this next one. It's the Romulan. I was like, this one looks just like you. I wonder why people don't.
Yeah, that he has played a Romulan and a Vulcan and a Klingon.
Yes, yeah. I do.
A little bit of Star Trek trivia for you there.
Thanks, you blew my mind.
That might blow your mind.
I'm welcome. All right.
Did they make him? Is it his likeness for the motion picture 12-inch figure? Is that it's him, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't have one of those.
Him at 79 too, right?
They actually made 2 different figures. They made a 3 and 3/4 inch.
There's 4 figures he doesn't know. He didn't know about.
4 Mego figures he doesn't know about, and then posthumously, like Mego has cranked out that head, 3 or 4 different times now. Yeah. So,
but we've never never made a Sarek, did they?
No.
Or maybe did Playmates make one for?
Yeah, they did, and they probably had to pay him.
Yeah. Well, so it all worked out in the end. He finally got.
It all worked out in the end. Yeah.
He got a couple bucks, and he's fine.
Yeah. I don't know, actually.
I knew a guy for a long time I worked with, and he disappeared. He sort of ghosted and disappeared, fell off the planet. But his name was Mark Leonard. And every time I say it to someone, all I would think of is, I could say, the guy who played Spock's dad. And I thought better of it, but
I think people really would shut down the minute they hear those 5 words. The guy who played Spock. That's 6 words. This guy who played Spock's dad, and it just it would just go to boo-doo.
Yeah, he was kind of a soft-spoken guy, and I'd say, and Mark Leonard, and he'd say, yeah, there's a very specific person that has said that to me through my life.
Yeah.
Meaning like 4 people have ever come up to him and said, you know what? There's a guy. That's it. But he disappeared. Yeah. Mark Leonard, if you're out.
What's weird is I was once washing dishes at a pizza place, training a girl, which, I don't know how you train someone to wash dishes, but there I was. And we were just joking, and I made some kind of Star Trek joke, and she's like, Jane Wyatt is my aunt.
No.
And I was like, Jane Wyatt is your aunt? That's Spock's mom. And I was like, oh, well, I've ruined all opportunity to be with you any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and distracted her completely from washing dishes. When I first moved to L.A., first handful of haircuts that I got, it's a true story, was at the mall in Burbank that's still there, and they had a little hair place or whatever. I didn't have anybody to cut my hair, and the woman that cut my hair several times was the daughter of B. Joe Trimble.
Oh, wow!
How weird is that, huh?
Star Trek super fan.
Yeah, I asked
B. Joe Trimble.
I said,
what name is that? I've never understood that name.
You don't want to know.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't.
Okay.
You don't want to know what that stands for. Well, there you go. There's an episode. We sure covered a lot of non-mummy stuff, but I think we got some mummy stuff.
We got more. This was more on topic than we've been in years.
Well, I'll take full credit for that, for steering the podcast as usual.
I agree. And you also mansplained Mark Leonard's career to me. Come on, I will be sending you a pick-me-up bouquet.
You really know. You really knew he played a Klingon. Come on, it's easy to say that now.
You know what I do, because that's about where I tap out of Star Trek.
That's you pulling out the 12-inch figure in your backpack. Well, I've got a third thing here for you to sign.
Really impressing the crowd as Mark Leonard punches me in the face, and I take it.
Oh well, we can laugh about it. It's been a long time. Well, there you go. I hope everybody's learned something. I certainly have, and that's our 2 Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody!
Right there. Happy Halloween. Be safe. Enjoy it, and I think it's safe to say Halloween is all year round. It's not just. It's in
our hearts.
Every day.
Yeah, it's like St. Patrick's Day. You just go to the bar every day, right. At least if you're me. And
give the Irish another excuse to go to the St. Patrick's Day. No, come on.
Tourists in March. Keep watching horror movies. Thank you for all the suggestions, and please give us some feedback in the Pod Stallions Facebook group. We really enjoy it.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody. I need to stop recording. There